on the Hawkeye Sports Network from Learfield. This is the Fight for Iowa podcast, brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy, proud partner of the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Big Ten Conference. Hy-Vee, where there's a helpful smile in every aisle. Iowa's corn farmers of the Iowa Corn Growers Association and Iowa Corn Promotion Board. You may think Iowa grows corn, but the truth is, corn grows Iowa. Shields, we're right there with you in Des Moines, Sioux City, Iowa City, and Cedar Falls. University of Iowa Healthcare, changing medicine, changing lives. This is the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Name, image, and likeness. NIL celebrated its second anniversary a couple months back. It continues to be a moving target. From California to Vermont and everywhere in between, the effort for uniformity with protocols and procedures is a work in progress. An NCAA subcommittee in charge of examining the rules met behind closed doors this week discussing proposed changes. We thought it proper to sit down with Iowa football's director of recruiting, Tyler Barnes, and get the latest with the Hawkeyes and NIL. That's next on the Fight for Iowa podcast, courtesy of Athletico, UIHC, Iowa Corn, and Shields.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
When it comes to your health, you need the full picture. That means the right diagnosis and the right treatment right from the start. I'm Aaron Bose, pediatric neurologist with University of Iowa Healthcare. Here, we're working together every day to advance medicine so you can get the best care. With more research, more clinical trials, and more treatment options than anywhere else in the state, the University of Iowa Healthcare is changing medicine and changing lives. Learn more at uihc.org.
Get in the game with Hawk Talk. Join Coach Kirk Ferentz and host Gary Dolphin for 90 minutes of Iowa football talk. Wednesdays, 6:30 to 8 Central. Listen live on the Hawkeye Radio Network and Iowa Hawkeyes YouTube channel. Presented by View Rooftop.
Something big is happening. Introducing Hy-Vee Perks. Now, Hy-Vee Fuel Saver is Hy-Vee Perks. Get the same great benefits like fuel savings. Plus, save even more on hundreds of products store-wide with Hy-Vee Perks prices like Tide. H Perks price, $9.97. And bananas. H Perks price, 39 cents a pound. Make the switch or sign up for Hy-Vee Perks and start saving today. It's free and easy. Some restrictions apply.
Touchdown, Iowa!
Hawkeye fans, put on your black and gold and get ready to fight for Iowa.
Johnson gets the corner turn. He's headed for the end zone. 10-5, touchdown. Touchdown, Iowa.
Coach Ferentz and the Hawks are on the road this weekend to take on Wisconsin. Join us Saturday. Our coverage begins at 1 on the Hawkeye Sports Network from Learfield. Now back to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
2 years into college athletics' game-changing NIL, athletes are experiencing the play-for-pay approach. Iowa football's director of recruiting and NFL liaison, Tyler Barnes, visited with us about the pros and cons of NIL's infancy and navigating through the rules and regulations, saying it's interesting to say the least, and there's more coming.
Not really sure what's going to happen here. The hot topic right now, you hear about revenue sharing, and no idea what that's going to look like in the future. We all think it's good for players. It's good for them to capitalize on their name, image, likeness, and be able to put a little bit more money in their pocket. And, we're a little bit different here. The guys we recruit, a lot of the guys aren't real interested in it. You can go back just a couple of years ago, Jack Campbell, Laporta, they turned down multiple deals because really wasn't high on their priority list. It was more about winning football games, being the best player they could be, and increasing their draft stock, which, ultimately that's where the real money is. Some of the hard parts that you hear and see a lot of numbers thrown out there across the country, and we'll say don't believe everything you see. There's probably a mix of what you see and a mix of what you don't hear about in terms of what's real. But when it comes to the transfer portal, it's a question, a top 3 question for most kids. And just like we do with high school kids, we try and find guys that are fits and the right guys for us. And if that's what they lead with, that's one of their top 2 or 3 questions. It's probably not the place for them to come to. And I think we did a pretty good job last year just naming the big 3 guys. You got Cade, Eric, and and Nick that, there was a lot more that went in their decisions other than just the name, image, likeness piece. So it was something we certainly have to navigate, but at the same time, we still got to find guys that want to be here and understand who we are and what we're about and the culture we've built, and want to come in and be a part of that and win football games.
There's an NIL subcommittee meeting this week to discuss several proposed changes, like giving schools clearance to find deals for the athletes, studying contracts, help in preparing for the tax side of the income, providing marketing tools to help the athletes complete their end of the deal on campus. Assistance that coaches and athletic departments couldn't even talk about 2 years ago, but you're probably knee deep in most of this right now, aren't you?
I think it's a huge move. A lot of these kids that are making money, first and foremost, not everybody comes from the same background. So giving them any type of assistance and resources to help them manage their money, file taxes, understand what they can do to help their money work for them in the future, I think is huge. And then, the part where letting schools finally be involved, you hear so many different things around the country about just how certain schools are doing certain things, and whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, we have no idea. It would be nice to be a little bit closer to really knowing what's actually happening. Right now we hear about some things, and it's hard to verify actually who has what deals and what's going on. It would certainly be nice to be together as one and have an idea, especially when you're trying to protect your locker room downstairs. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's part of keeping the team together and having guys not get jealous over what one guy's making and what deal another guy's getting. I think it certainly can go a long way, and hoping all that, passes through here whenever that vote is, I think next week at some point.
Hawk fans can now get selective too with their support for student athletes in all 22 sports. Individuals who contribute a one-time gift of $1,000 or more, or commit to a monthly minimum gift of $100 or more, will be able to direct their NIL dollars to the program of their choice. I like that kind of freedom.
Absolutely. And I think, credit to Brad and Scott and Jane when they really got all this started, and I think the approach they took even just to get things set up for our team and how they wanted to work is to provide an opportunity for every student athlete on the roster, including walk-ons. And I think that really embodies who we are as a football program and how we've operated under Coach Ferentz. And it only makes sense to expand it to the rest of the student athlete population and give them an opportunity. Everybody talks about the big three, basketball, football, and wrestling here at Iowa, but there are 19 other sports that people need to realize exist on campus. So I think it's a good thing. I haven't talked to Brad and heard what the numbers updates are, but I'm sure hopefully that'll provide an opportunity for those athletes to get a little money in their pockets as well.
More with Hawkeye Recruiting Director Tyler Barnes after this from our sponsors.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
Hey, Hawkeyes fans, it's time to gear up for the season, so let's do it right. Jerseys, hats, hoodies, and more. Shields has everything you need to show your Iowa pride. Visit our fan shop online or in-store for the biggest and best brands in the game. You'll find the right gear to level up your team spirit with all the essentials for your pregame parking lot party. Shields, proud partner of Iowa athletics and football fans everywhere.
Are aches, pains, or injuries keeping you on the sidelines? At Athletico, our movement experts are here to help you turn your setbacks into comebacks and create a personalized game plan for your recovery. With no prescription or referral needed, Athletico Physical Therapy is where your comeback story begins. Get started today by scheduling a free assessment at athletico.com. Proud partner of the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Upgrade game day with Hawkeye Village. Get game tickets, pregame extravaganza, all you can eat, drinks, and more. Perfect for groups or families. Limited availability. Call 800-424-2957 or email group-sales@hawkeyesports.com. Join the Hawkeye excitement at Hawkeye Village.
Now back to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Tyler Barnes and all the Hawkeye staff and coaches are well aware of the passionate fan base that the University of Iowa has, from season ticket purchases, iClub memberships, foundation support for the law, dental, medical schools. Hawk fans have been there, Tyler, for athletics and the university in general. Now, NIL, something new where educating is so important out of the gate. What's the fan response been in general?
I think it's been pretty good. You forgot one thing, the sellouts, the consecutive 2 seasons of sellouts. Obviously, we appreciate that. Kennick's a huge home game atmosphere for us. But, I think the biggest thing is you hear coaches around the country that are a little bit more frank about NIL and just where they are in terms of things. It is unfortunately it's a spot where to compete you need to have a really good collective in place, and you got to have some fan support. And again, shout out to Brad, Jane, and Scott for getting that up and rolling, and Brad taking a shot to get this rolling when he has a full-time job that pays him much more than the $0 he makes running this collective. But, I just can't stress how important it is just to have a structure in place and be able to not even transfers, but high school kids to know that, hey, there's an opportunity when you get here, you're going to have a chance to make money because it's coming down the pipe with everybody around the country you're starting to recruit. Maybe not as heavy in the Midwest as it is in Southeast and the West Coast a little bit, and some of those kids in Texas, but it's something that's certainly asked about at some point when a kid's on campus for 12 hours. It's going to be brought up. The parents are going to bring it up. What's your structure? What are the opportunities? How is my son going to be able to, profit in his 4 to 5 years at the University of Iowa? And, I wish I could say it's not where it's come to, but it certainly is. And anything fans can do, even if it's a small donation monthly to the collective, it's going to go a long way, and it's going to help us stay competitive.
The Brad you mentioned is Brad Heinrichs, the CEO of the Swarm Collective, assisted ably by Scott Brickman and Jane Oswald. Now, the Swarm participates with over 40 nonprofit organizations, and in the first year, if my numbers are correct here, coordinated 1,200 student athlete service hours and appearances. What a tremendous asset, Tyler, in getting student athletes involved in the communities, both from a charitable perspective and civic organizations, getting to meet and know other business people.
Absolutely. And our guys they've done a really good job of trying to get out in the community. And obviously COVID slowed that down for a couple of years, and especially across the street, the Children's Hospital, certainly. But, our guys like getting out there and interacting with, whether it's the food pantry, they're helping out at an old person's home. They're doing Meals on Wheels, you name it. They like getting out there. And all of our guys are great kids, and just to give them 2 to 3 to 4 hours of exposure with different people, businesses, things around Iowa City, the community, and the state even. I think it's a win-win for both sides. And, I know there's some people that worry about, there's money being exchanged for them to do that. But one thing I would say, you got to go back and look at these guys' schedules too. It's they're student athletes, so they've got their school schedule on top of, especially in the fall, what they're required to do here. And the best players they see playing on Saturday, they're doing more than required. I mean, you have to at this level to compete. So I think it's a good way to balance both things. You get to see a lot more of our guys outside the building, a lot more interaction from fans, and then they have a chance to, make a little bit of money off it as well.
And who knew you could buy a beer or maybe a vodka tonic and help support Hawkeye athletics? And looking at the sales of Swarm beer and vodka distributed by our friends at Exile and Foundry Breweries, 2 Iowa companies, the percentage of return to the NIL collective has been healthy to the bottom line, huh?
It's funny. I always tell Brad, he's a big idea guy, obviously. He comes up with things that are way out of left field that, me personally, I'd be like, it's probably not going to be a great idea or not going to work. But obviously, that's why he's good in that role, because it has been. And I think anything he can do to help increase that pool of money to go out to all the student athletes at the University of Iowa is always going to be a net positive. But it is funny just seeing how this is taken off. It's a pretty cool sight to see. And he was the first guy around the country. And I think you've seen a bunch of collectives around the country follow suit quickly. So obviously it was a really good idea, and kudos to Brad for pushing that and coming up with that, from the ground floor.
So what keeps Tyler Barnes awake at night or gives you a little heartburn as you look down the road as to what's next for NIL?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like when it first started, just a couple of Julys ago. You got to see what what's really going to be laid out and what the rules and regulations are going to be, and that was the biggest challenge when it really started in July just 2 years ago. Is they rolled it out, but not everybody knew how it was going to work. Not everybody knew what your state regulation was. Not everybody knew what the NCAA rules were going to be. And you want to be proactive, but at the same time, you don't want to cross any lines and get yourself in trouble. So that's where we kind of had to be patient. That first year we weren't real active in the transfer portal, and for us, in an ideal world, we wouldn't be. Hopefully we're recruiting well enough and we're developing guys and retaining guys where you don't have to lean heavily on the portal. And last year we had to, and I think we addressed some of the needs we needed. And part of my role working with Coach Ferentz is the roster management piece. And you're always trying to forecast who's going to be here, who's not. The COVID year situation is still factoring into our roster management. We still have this year's senior class and next year's where guys can come back for one more year, which you want those guys to come back. But selfishly, when that's done, it'll make things a lot cleaner. projection is a little bit easier. The fluidity is going to be a little bit smoother. So, it'll be interesting. I don't know what to expect. I try and read up on the news and the votes and what everybody thinks and what, NCAA council and legislation is talking about. And until they really make a vote and put something in place, I think you just kind of keep operating as you are and just be ready for whatever change is going to take place. And I think Coach Ferentz has done a good job being really open to the portal and understanding how much it could help. You get a guy like Cade, who unfortunately is hurt for the year, but Eric All, great player and even better human being. Nick Jackson, same thing. He's playing as well as he has since he's been here, and also an awesome kid. Rusty Fest stepping in as the next man up and starting to guard for 3 straight games. So it could definitely be fruitful, but we also want to make sure we're recruiting those guys the same way we do high school kids. We want to dig into who they are and what they're about and make sure they're going to be a fit for the current guys in our locker room and make sure there's no rift or anything that's going to steer that locker room in the wrong way.
Tyler Barnes, Hawkeye recruiting director, has been for a number of years, and also Iowa's NFL liaison. Well, we'll see where the trailblazing path goes. Tyler, we know you're going to be on it for a while, so thanks so much for joining us on today's Fight for Iowa podcast, bud.
Absolutely, Dolph. I appreciate it.
And I'll be back with more on our Fight for Iowa podcast in just a minute. Right now, a pause to hear from our sponsors.
More of the Fight for Iowa podcast after this.
How would you like to be able to listen to the Hawkeye Radio Network while synced up to your TV in the comfort of your own home? Go to syncmygame.com to find out how. That's syncmygame.com.
To anyone passing through our state, fields and fields of corn might be what they see. But the people who call Iowa home know it's so much more. Corn is ethanol, a homegrown, renewable fuel. Corn is delicious pork, beef, poultry, and dairy. Corn is in 4,000 products we rely on every day. So yeah, our highway views are full of corn, and we're proud of it. Because corn grows Iowa. Show your support for Iowa corn farmers at iowacorn.org/fan of corn.
When you're out of town and want to keep up with the Hawkeyes and other college sports, be sure to download the new Varsity Network app. Available for both Apple and Android. Listen to college sports live with the Varsity Network app.
Now back to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Here's the voice of the Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin.
Congratulations to Iowa senior punter Tory Taylor, the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week for his performance in a victory over Purdue. Taylor punted 6 times for an average of 47 yards. 2 of his kicks traveled 61 and 57 yards, and a pair were downed inside the 20. Taylor leads the conference, averaging 48 yards a kick. That's 7th best nationally. A couple former Hawkeye letter winners passed away recently. Iowa Football Coaches Association Hall of Fame inductee Wally Sheets was a member of the 1956 Hawks and a legendary head coach at Cedar Rapids, Washington. Sheets was a native of Tipton. Del Gerke played for Jerry Burns on the 1964 Iowa team. Gerke would serve as the athletic department's facilities manager for 30 years following his graduation. Del Gerke was a native of Mendota, Illinois. That's our show this week. Thanks to Hawkeye football recruiting director Tyler Barnes. Catch the Fight for Iowa podcast at HawkeyeSports.com or download on your favorite apps, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google. We're sponsored by the Iowa Lottery. I'm Gary Dolphin. Go Hawks.
You've been listening to the Fight for Iowa podcast. Hawkeye fans, remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Once you become a Fight for Iowa podcast subscriber, you'll automatically receive the latest episodes of the Fight for Iowa podcast, the Hawkeyes Voice podcast, Hawk Talk replays, exclusive game day content, and more. Until next time, on Iowa, and go Hawks! The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Hawkeye Sports Network.